Hello, beautiful souls. You're listening to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancis. Did you know that you can listen to this show everywhere podcasts are found? It's true. Now, I have three free gifts just for you. First gift, I give away a new reading each week to a person who's left a 5-star positive review of this show, then submitted it to me using the contact form at theangelmedium.com/contact. I hope I'm calling your number next. Second gift, if you'd like a new daily angel message, join me on Insta at Angel Podcast. Third free gift. If you'd like to know the name of one of your guardian angels so that you can work with them even more closely, go to the homepage of my website, theangelmedium.com, and submit your contact info at the very top. I'll email you back personally with the name of one of your angels. Okay, as we begin the show, I want you to feel the presence of your angels surrounding you. And just know that the loving, positive messages you resonate with today are messages for you from your angels and loved ones on the other side. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancis. And friends, today we're going to have two guests on the show. First is Dr. Robert Lufkin, who wrote a book that is just so incredible. It has really helped me make huge mindset shifts. I keep it by my bedside just with my ADHD brain to be able to remember all that he said. And then we're having on also my new friend Nettie, who is all about metabolic eating. And we're going to talk to her more because she is helping me put all of this into practice of making these shifts within my mind. She has this process of actually taking blood work. She does this as a living. This is her business. A celebrity friend of mine, nobody that I've had on the podcast before, actually recommended it to another friend of mine. And then she recommended Nettie to me. But Nettie actually works with your blood work. So you go get blood work done. You have her send this blood work out to Germany, and then they test it to see metabolism wise what your body is going to store versus what your body is just going to naturally burn off. So Nettie, welcome in. I'm going to have you come on first, and then we'll bring Dr. Lufkin on. But you work in this amazing way where I was telling people you send out people's blood work to Germany. You're able to test their blood work to figure out what foods their body metabolizes better and what foods their body stores.
Yep, that's true. I do a lot of things as far as working with the metabolism, and there's a lot of processes in the program. But yeah, I'm a metabolic balance practitioner and coach. And I've been in the wellness industry for 30 years and been in the food world for probably 27 years of that time. It really saved me many, many years ago as my practice evolved.
Yeah. Well, I was telling people before you hopped on, I have a celebrity friend. You told her about this and you got her like on just a great plan. And then my friend ended up connecting with you and then she connected me to you. You've worked with so many different people and everybody says, then I sent my husband and Nettie has just changed our lives completely. So how does this work? How does it work where how can a lab test your blood to see, like what stores fat within you and kind of accumulates that within you and what actually your body burns off metabolically?
Yeah. So, most of the time people come to me to do this program for weight loss. right? But it's a metabolism program. And that's the exciting part about it, because you lose weight, the weight comes off. And why? Because you're balancing the metabolism. You're getting all those things. Now, the way that it works, it's not just the blood work that's a part of it, because we need some data. We're all different. Our bodies digest differently. We have a different biological inheritance. We have, our genetically where we're from, different cultures. We all have different foods that we eat, and then there's behaviors. So I take your information, your medical history, your gender, your age, the circumference of your waist around your belly button. That's a critical criteria in insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. In fact, it's one of the 5 criteria of metabolic syndrome, which is the next step after insulin resistance. Insulin resistance causes metabolic syndrome. 5 of the criteria for metabolic syndrome is waist size. For a woman, 35 inches or over. For a man, 40 inches or over. But it takes a number of inches to get to that, right? So you're already in it. Once you start losing weight or trying to lose weight and you can't lose, this is the non-medical way that I always like to explain it. I'm not a doctor. I'm a health, wellness, and coach and practitioner. But for women, what I notice is the thing that gets us is, oh my God, I'm losing my waist. I try and lose weight. I try and lose weight. I try and lose weight. My waist just keeps getting bigger. Again, that's one of the 5 criteria. That's where insulin starts to really store, the nitty gritty of it. And cardiovascular disease is associated with belly and all of these things. So waist size, high cholesterol, low HDL, high blood sugar, and high blood pressure. Those are the 5 criteria of metabolic syndrome. And then metabolic syndrome leads to fatty liver disease, polycystic ovarian syndrome, diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's.
Which
So
we're going to talk about with Dr. Lufkin, and
yeah,
his thing is, and we'll get to this in a second when we bring him on, but it's really that your body is, I keep thinking of it like a piggy bank after reading his book. It's either storing everything or it's burning everything. And your body burns off fats most, it burns off proteins medium, and it doesn't burn off carbs at all. It just stores them within your physical body. But it's so hard because I am that person, Nettie, where like I've done everything and my waist isn't shrinking. And it's not about the pounds. It's just about feeling good. It's about my future health. And what you were saying, it leads to all of this other stuff. It's not just diabetes that Dr. Lufkin shows in his science in his book. It's attached to cancer. It's attached to Alzheimer's. It's attached to mental health and everything. So, what I really like about your program is that you not only help us know what foods our body are going to work best with our bodies that are going to burn through the best, but you're also going to help us put together a plan of what to eat, what recipes to use, what that looks like.
it's pretty simple. So and I'll lead into that. So once we got your medical history, right? Because you asked me how does the blood work do this, and how do they create the food? How do we create the food plan? We take your data, your measurements, your gender. We get your blood work, which is a 36 marker blood panel, a metabolic blood panel. I gather, and then I sit down with you and we go over your food likes and dislikes, because we don't want to just throw in a plan of foods that, even though your body wants them, you don't like them. So that defeats the purpose of enjoying your food. So there's the mental, the spiritual, the physical, there's this whole thing happening here. So we take all that data and your blood work, and I send that to my medical team in Germany. They've been doing this for about 25 years. all over the world. It's awesome, and they have the science to analyze all that data, and we know you. And at the same time, you're giving me your dream weight, okay? Because it's chemistry. If you weigh this amount and you want to get to this amount, how am I going to get there? What do I eat, and how much of it do I eat? So it's very specific. We're not into calories because you could have a calorie of a Snicker bar and you can have a calorie of an apple, but they're two entirely different calories, right? So we take all of that data and that information, and out comes your food plan. It's just science. And so I know your proteins, I know your vegetables, I know your meat, your seafood, your dairy, if you're getting it based on your medical conditions. And like if you have allergies, if you're sensitive to this, there's a lot of data.
And you work with vegans too, right? Because I just want to make that clear. If somebody wants more of a vegetarian or vegan lifestyle, you work with that too.
I can work with anybody. This is the thing though. And I was a raw vegan for 8 years. I'm a flexitarian now, and I literally go by my metabolic balance plan. However, some days I'm vegan, some days I'm vegetarian, some days I'm pescatarian. It depends because we require that you eat 3 proteins a day, different proteins, not the same, because we need a variety of nutrients in our diet. And there's a lot of talk about macronutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats. But that doesn't cover the micronutrients, which are the magic. Those are the micronutrients, molecules, fats, carbs, and proteins. Micronutrients, those are the things that get in between everything. That's the magic. That's the color. That's the roto-rooters. That's the cleaner uppers. That's the things that are going to go in and take that inflammation out. That's the stuff that's going to scrape and push and plunge all that stuff out of your body. It doesn't miraculously just disappear.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of bacteria and fungus and all kinds of mucus and yucky stuff that's brewing in there that causes the fermentation and the inflammation.
So here's why I'm so excited about this, because
Yeah.
I was going for a walk with one of my girlfriends who's a personal trainer. And I was telling her, for the past 5 months, I've been doing Pilates every single day. And my weight, like I've seen changes in my physical body, which I feel very much more strong. I am so flexible.
Nice.
My body feels good. It feels good to go to Pilates, which is why I keep doing it. Then for the last month, I've been adding in weight training. And again, like my weight hasn't changed at all. So I'm on this walk with my girlfriend, and she goes, Julie, what you don't understand is that you can continue to build muscle underneath your layers. But she's like, unless you change your eating, it's just going to be adding layers to your body where you've got these bigger muscles, and it can make your weight go up. It can increase your waist size. And she said, until you change the eating, you're not going to see as much reflected in the mirror. And that really made a lot of sense, which is where Spirit kind of brought you in and this book in by Dr. Lufkin. Friends, guess what? We're hosting 2 live in-person events, an in-person Angel Reiki School and an in-person spiritual retreat. The first event is the weekend of June 1st in Oak Brook, Illinois, where I'm teaching the Angel Reiki School. This is where you get certified in mediumship, angel messages, and energy healing all at once. For a limited time, when you register for the Angel Reiki School in person, you'll also get my 8-week online Angel Reiki School. Visit theangelmedium.com/get-certified for details. You'll also find that link in the show notes. It's theangelmedium.com/get-certified. The second live in-person event this year is a spiritual retreat, the weekend of October 4th in Oak Brook, Illinois. The spiritual retreat is different in that it's for your own personal growth. The spiritual retreat is all about your own personal healing, your journey, reconnecting with yourself, learning to connect with your angels. And I'm going to talk about all new angels that I've never talked about before anywhere. This spiritual retreat is going to leave you with more personal peace, purpose, clarity, and confidence than ever before. Learn more at theangelmedium.com/retreat. That's theangelmedium.com/retreat. So, just to recap, we have the in person spiritual retreat October 4th for your own personal healing and growth. And the in person Angel Reiki School June 1st is where you become a medium, angel messenger, and energy healer all at once. Links to details are in the show notes. I can't wait to meet you and hug you in person. So, what Nettie and I have decided is that we're gearing up for summertime. It's going to come out in May. And we are, it doesn't matter when you listen to the podcast, even if it's 2 years later, you can contact Nettie, get into our group. She's going to set us up with a small group, anybody from this podcast who wants to do this, and just figure out what your body metabolizes, have Nettie put together a plan for you, and join us to kind of go on this journey together. So, Nettie, can you kind of explain, and you can give them more details and the cost and everything offline, but maybe just describe like the big overview of the journey we're going to go on together.
I'll make it short and sweet, but I want to just mention one thing about the exercise. Weight loss is 80% diet. In my program, you're not even allowed to work out for 6 weeks. You can do yoga, you can walk, you can swim, you can do gentle exercises because we got to get it here. Working out requires an entirely different nutritional program. We need to get your body set and your metabolism going so that your energy increases, your inflammation goes down, and now you just want to move your body. It just happens. You're going to be eager and excited to looking forward to sweating because you're going to feel so good. And it just happens when your body is getting the right foods, the right portions, and you're eating at the right times of the day with time in between. Okay, so it's very specific. So it's a 4-phase program. I get you ready before you start. Then there's 2 days of a strict cleansing period where we got to clean out the intestinal system. Then there's 14 days of a strict period where you're eating your foods off of your full list of, you have fruit, you have 2 different bread options, you have a variety of vegetables that are on your plan, you have a variety of proteins, beans, seafood, poultry, meat. Some people have mushrooms, seeds, nuts. There's very specific. We don't know. Everybody's different. My mom and my sister have done it. We all have different plans. Our bodies are different. We're unique. So then there's 14 days where we have 0 oils. There's a reason for that. This is a full fat program. We do not believe in 0 fat. You're going to get full fat yogurt if you have dairy. You're going to get full fat milk if you're going to get full fat cheese. There's no 0. There's no skim. This is the way God wanted it. Okay. This is the real food, 3 real foods. There's no packaged goods. There's some condiments and oils and things that we use. So there's 14 days of no oil, although there's fats in your food. You have avocado, you have seeds, you have nuts, you have dairy, whatever it is, there's fat. Just no oils because there's magic that happens with the insulin production, your liver and gallbladder, and the way we manufacture and our hormones. So we have to take away the oils for 14 days. We go over how to cook food. You got to grill, air fry, steam, poach. There's all kinds of ways to cook without throwing in tons of oil. And then after those 16 days, 2 days of cleansing and 14 days of no oil, then we get into phase 2. You're in phase 2 to you reach your goal weight. Consistently, time and time again, whether it's 20 pounds up to 50 pounds, you will lose it in 30 to 90 days, depending on how much and where you are. But consistently, the top weight, I mean, if people need to lose longer, it'll take longer. But my clients lose up to 50 pounds in 90 days. And I want to assure you that this is not about the scale. We are so stuck on the scale. Yes, you're going to tell me your dream weight because inside your body, you still have the same body. I have the same body right now after I did the program and had metabolic syndrome. I'm 60 years old. I wear a size 2-4. That's what used in my 20s. When I had metabolic syndrome and I was 40 pounds overweight, I was up to a 10-12. But I am consistently at this size, the same size I was in my 20s and 30s. We still have the same body inside there, but it's not about the scale. It's about the waist size and fat storage and how your clothes fit. Right? You mentioned earlier that you could gain weight because you're building muscle, but you're still storing fat. Your scale is going to go down, but the real magic is your measurements. Because you can inches without, that's inflammation and bloating without putting on the scale.
Right.
So is come and go.
And I think it's about not putting any shame on yourself. Like there's no shame in this
No,
whatsoever. It's just science and it's really just science. And what we were talking about earlier, it's not just that this leads to diabetes, it impacts our mental health, Alzheimer's, cancer, different things. And choosing ourselves to be the best that we can be for ourselves, our families, and grandkids one day.
the one thing that I really know and I've experienced and I see this time and time again because this is about health for me. I
Yeah.
want to be I want to be healthy till the day I die. I don't want to be cared for 20 years. Right? I want to be able to walk. I want to be able to feel pretty. I want to be able to be healthy. But the greatest thing is that since science is telling us now that insulin resistance creates dementia, over the last 30 years and being a colon hydrotherapist and I've created products to cleanse the bowel and all this stuff, the way that the mind changes, the deeper connection to spirituality and the higher power, the more love we have for one another, the more love we have for ourselves because we're not poisoned inside. Our bodies are working, and so we are an electrical, spiritual being,
And
and
I'm
that's
hoping to feel a difference. Yeah, I'm hoping to feel a difference there. I gotta tell you, I think that there's so many toxins within the body. Like, I have been working out religiously for 5 months consistently, and I don't feel good. I feel good after the Pilates. I don't feel great after lifting weights, like because you can feel those toxins releasing from the body. And I don't feel more spiritual. Like and I know a lot of people say like you're going to feel that more spirituality. And I know Dr. Lufkin says in his book that it can take up to 2 years from some of these seed oils to work its way out and for inflammation to work its way out. So I'm really hoping, and I will report back on this to like the community, but I don't also want people to think like if you have to be a certain size to be intuitive or to connect with your own spiritual center. So, yeah, I see what you're saying. I haven't felt that yet. I haven't experienced that yet. I'm hoping to. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. So, how do people register for the program?
I do. You can go to nettinovelli.com. I have a variety of links on there for a variety of things that I do. My email address is Nettie, Nettie, at wellionaireliving.com.
How do you spell Wellionaire?
Like a millionaire, only Wellionaire. Wellionaires. Wellionaire.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, Wellionaire Living, nettinovelli.com. You'll get there. You could email me. You can make a free discovery call appointment. That would be the best because I have to get some information from you, and I'm sure you might have questions. So if you go to nettinovelli.com and go to my services, you'll see a free discovery call. And I will also get you the information for a group that I'll set up. And
And that'll
if
be a group with me. So they have to tell you that they want to register for Julie's group.
yeah,
And yeah, That way I can be in Facebook with them.
Julie 24.
Perfect.
Julie 24 is the code. And I'll get that all set up. And yeah, it's going to be great. And it's so much fun to do it when there's a number of people doing it together. We learn so much from each other because of the food dynamic and tips. And I'll be giving you everything I can my goal is your success. I love the transformation.
Yay.
We get so much from everybody else because everybody's experience is so unique.
Nettie, and I gotta say, it's 111. The angels just said, look at the clock. It's 111, which is an angel number. And I
Nice.
have to say, too, the angels guided me to you for this, and they just brought us together in an angel story that I'll just tell a different day. But I am just so excited about going through this program with you. And I really do want people to use my name, Julie, when they reach out to you so that they can be in the Facebook group with me and we can all go through it together.
And they'll get the special rate.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yay.
Rate for anybody who wants to do this because this is such an awesome experience that we get to do it with you.
Yeah.
And in this dynamic, this is so fun. And you
Okay.
know what? It's creating more love. The
It
healthier we
is.
are, the more love we can share.
I love
It's
it.
awesome.
Well, and I do agree with that because, when you're taking those proactive steps to aid your mental health, to aid, so that you're not having to struggle with that in the future, the angels just showed me this vision of then you have more time to enjoy with your
Absolutely.
family and to love instead of having to enjoy that time under medical care circumstances where your
And fog,
children are caring for you. Yeah,
right. Just
yeah,
foggy thinking. Being toxic makes you sad, irritable, angry, depressed. We're at an all-time we are in such a time right now. Everyone is just struggling. And if we could start with a solid foundation of our metabolic system, which is in charge of everything,
yes,
we have to get a healthy metabolic system in order to have a free flow of energy
yeah,
to be healthier. And then we seek out therapies and all the things that we can to for trauma. We all have trauma, but we have to start with a solid foundation in this amazing temple, this one place we get to live our
yeah.
entire life.
So I think that that's a great segue into me talking with Dr. Lufkin today, which is really the premise of his entire book. And, the angels have just been saying all year metabolism, metabolism, metabolism. But you and him are two of the only people that I find really talking about this subject. And it was the premise of his entire book. And it's called Lies I Taught in Medical School because he was a doctor teaching other doctors and he goes, I just thought that metabolism was something for nutritionists. And he goes, now I look at diseases. And he said, I see the root cause of all disease, mental illness, Alzheimer, cancer as metabolism. Your metabolism is the foundation to it all. And so that's why I'm really excited to connect with you, Nettie, and to connect anybody here who's interested in going through the program with me as I do this for the very first time. And we'll check back with people after we get started a couple of times to just say, okay, this is midway through. This is the progress that we've made so far. And then check back a couple of times afterwards and just see how it's going.
Absolutely. I just want to thank you so much. I call this nutrition for the modern condition. And my mission is just to create more millionaires. And I'm so grateful to have this time with you. I mean, this is awesome. Love your podcast. Love what you're doing. We're just going to spread the love.
Love it. And you know what? That is just the most brilliant word, wellionaires, because the angels
Yeah.
have said this is the year of abundance. And for
Yeah.
so many people that I've been talking to, it is an abundance of health.
Health is
And
our health.
wow, wellionaire. I want to step into being a wellionaire.
Yay. You will. You
Yes,
already
yes,
are. You're in.
yay. Awesome. Well, Nettie, tell everybody one more time where they can connect with you to get set up in our group, and then we're going to head over to the conversation with Dr. Lufkin.
Sure. Nettie, Nettie, Novelli, NettieNovelli.com. Go to services, just schedule a discovery call, and you'll be on the list, and we'll get all the information to you. And I so hope you join, because this is going to be amazing. Just
Yeah.
amazing. Love it. Thank you.
Yay. I'm so excited, Nettie. This is going to be amazing. All right. And here we go. We are going to dive over to my interview with Dr. Lufkin. Thank you, Nettie, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'll talk to you soon.
Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancis. And friends, you know that my goal this year has been to read 2 books a week. And this is one of my top books that I am recommending for the year. It's something that has just really made a huge mental shift and impact within my life. And it's something that, because of my ADHD, I have decided I'm going to place by the bedside all year to just remind me of the very first chapter, which really, really touches my heart. It's called Lies I Taught in Medical School. And I love that. Lies I taught, because you were the professor. How conventional medicine is making you sicker and what you can do to save your life. Simple, proven lifestyle changes to prevent and reverse disease. Dr. Robert Lufkin, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Julie. I have to say I'm a fan of your podcast, and it's a real thrill and an honor to be on it today. So I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. And so, my listeners know, if they've been listening for a while, my grandma suffered with diabetes. From an early age, I kind of looked at the other people in my family and felt a camaraderie with her, because I felt like my body type was a lot like her body type. And my listeners also know that I'm a big fan of medicine. I get my vaccinations. I know some people feel differently about that, but this is not about conspiracy theories or any of that. You are very deep in your doctor. You teach at world-renowned schools, and what you write in this book comes from your life of experience.
Yeah. I mean, just just to be perfectly clear, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm part of the establishment. I've taught at leading medical schools my entire career, and I believe that Western medicine is is the most powerful tool we have for certain types of diseases. It is unexcelled for many types of infectious disease, and it's been very successful in the 20th century about changing our lifespan, and by treating a lot of public health conditions and infectious diseases. Also, even today, if I'm any of us, God forbid, are in an automobile accident and we wind up in the emergency room, I want to be treated by Western medicine. If I need a blood transfusion, if I need my bones set, it's great to think about my diet, and my diet will probably help me heal better from those. But in the acute situation, Western medicine is unequaled. And I think the problem is when Western medicine is now, we're faced with chronic diseases as our population lives longer. There are certain diseases that are appearing, a whole constellation of chronic diseases that we talk about in the book. And these chronic diseases actually, there is no pill for, there is no surgery for them. Although they are treated with pills and surgery, they typically just treat the symptoms. And Western medicine isn't so great at these chronic diseases, although there are things that work for them, but it's just not the usual things that Western medicine tries. And that's kind of the theme of my book and my own personal epiphany and experience around that.
Amazing. So, the angels have been bringing me around, spirits has been bringing me around to this word metabolism all year, and just kind of hitting me over the head with it. And when it comes to your book, the underlying theme is all about the metabolism, which you say is something that doctors really aren't taught a lot about. You're taught that it's for the nutritionist to handle, but you see the metabolism as something that changes everything regarding our health and is maybe like the primary factor in the diseases that we're developing within the body.
Yeah, and these major diseases, they're important because for you, me, and most of our listeners, statistically, these are the diseases that we will die of, and it's a short list. It's the top 5 diseases account for most of our deaths, and so it's number 1, cardiovascular disease, heart attacks and strokes. Number 2, cancer. And then it goes down to include Alzheimer's disease and a few others. But right now, modern medicine approaches these as very different types of diseases that are in many ways largely unrelated. But I think there is very compelling evidence to show that these diseases are actually driven by common root causes, and this is based on our metabolism. And the beauty of this is when we improve our metabolism and lower our risk of heart attack, we also lower our risk of cancer. We also lower our risk of Alzheimer's disease and hypertension and diabetes and obesity. So it's amazing. All these things are linked, even mental illness, which was a complete shock for me.
Yes. Well, and you talk about insulin, unlike anybody else I've ever heard, which, and you say a lot of what I've been thinking for years, which is if insulin is the problem, why was my grandma taking insulin, to begin with? And I saw the progression over, 40 years of how it affected her health, and she never got better after starting to take the insulin. But you show how in the book the we have carbs, we have fat, we have was the third one, protein. And you don't need carbohydrates to survive. We can survive on the fat and the protein. And you have this graph in here, and you talk about this in a way where I started to see my body as a bank account, because you say when it comes to carbs, we start storing all of those carbs within our bodies. And when our bodies start to store things, it's storing the carbs the most, protein second to most, and fats the least. Which really, every time I started to like pick up something to eat it, I started to think of my body as a bank account and like, okay, do I want to put this carbohydrate into my mouth? Because I know my body is a storer and it's going to store this. Talk to us about all of this.
Yeah, it's a fascinating idea, and insulin's a fundamentally important molecule for metabolism, but for all of us. And I'm not sure if your relative was a type 1 diabetic or type 2 diabetic.
Type 2.
Type 2, okay. Most people today, there's a diabetes epidemic, unlike unprecedented in history, even accounting for population. And it's 90% of it is type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetics actually need insulin to live, and it saves their lives. So it's a life-saving for them. Type 2 diabetics actually may need insulin as part of their treatment, but the fascinating thing about type 2 diabetes is that it is due to carbohydrate toxicity. Essentially too many carbohydrates, because carbohydrates are the 3 macronutrients that you mentioned. Carbohydrates are the ones that stimulate insulin. So the interesting thing about type 2 diabetes is that for most patients, it's possible to reverse your type 2 diabetes and actually get off insulin and even get off your other medications by diet. And diet basically means cutting out carbohydrates. And like you, I have relatives in my family that were diabetic. Some were type 1 diabetics, some were type 2 diabetics. And I used to think about diabetes as, like a lot of diseases, is something you either get or you don't get, and thankfully you didn't get it, but your relative got it. My thinking about that has changed because of some recent articles. There's a recent publication that I talk about in the book that looks at adult non-diabetics in America. And this is taken from a large population of data from the Framingham data. And these are people who are not diabetic, right? Just normal, otherwise non-diabetic patients. And if you look at their marker for diabetes, which is a blood test called hemoglobin A1C, when hemoglobin A1C passes a certain threshold, you become diabetic. You're classified as a diabetic, and your doctor will say, okay, you have diabetes, you need to take these medicines. When it's below that number, you're not diabetic. And it's sort of arbitrary, but that's the way our system works. And we have to have a cutoff somewhere. It's just, so anyway, but the interesting thing was, in these non-diabetic people, over time with aging, the older they get, the higher this A1C marker gets. And so the take-home message to me was that type 2 diabetes isn't something, some uncommon thing that some people just wind up getting, but it's actually, it's something that we all face. It's kind of like gray hair. If we live long enough, we don't die of something first, type 2 diabetes will be in our picture for most, if not all of us. So what's the message? What does that mean? Well, it means that we should all begin looking at our lives, the choices we make in our lifestyle, to eat the foods and do the lifestyle type things that will minimize our risk of type 2 diabetes, because potentially we're all on the path to it.
You said something in the book that was interesting too about, I think you referenced it with smoking. Like, you might have been a smoker all your life, but as you get to your later years, it's going to really start to impact you even more because of how the cells are aging. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the things I started doing in this book was there's a revolution in longevity that we're going through, and these diseases, if we control these chronic diseases that determine what we die of and when we die, will actually increase our longevity. So it used to be that people died, 60 years of age, 65 years of age. That's why the retirement age is around then. Today, I think it's possible that many of us are going to live past 100 in unprecedented numbers. And so we need to start thinking about our lives differently if we're going to live for another 50 years after we turn age 60 or 65. And some interesting things happen with cancer. Our risk of cancer actually goes up with aging also. We talked about diabetes risk going up, but cancer risk also goes up, to the point that a 70-year-old has a greater risk for lung cancer than a 70-year-old non-smoker has a greater risk of lung cancer than a 30-year-old smoker who smokes cigarettes. So there are all these things that we begin to think about differently as we look towards a much longer, healthier life.
So does that apply to food too, and all of these various things across the board? The older that we get, the more prone we are to them and the more careful we need to be?
Yeah, there's a phenomenon that happens that we talked about already with the insulin resistance, that is basically what type 2 diabetes is, but our body becomes less and less sensitive to insulin. So it takes higher and higher levels of insulin. Also with aging, something called inflammation occurs. We get chronic low-grade inflammation that increases with aging, and it, along with insulin resistance, are the metabolic drivers for these chronic diseases. So all these things start potentially getting worse and worse. So we need to be proactive and start doing things in our lifestyle that can prevent them, rather than waiting till we go to the doctor's office and they go, yeah, you know what, you have Alzheimer's disease, or you know what, you have a heart attack. because whether it's diabetes, whether it's Alzheimer's disease or heart disease or any of these diseases, the evidence is very clear that these diseases don't begin the moment the doctor diagnoses them, but they actually begin years to decades earlier. And the earlier we begin preventing them, the better chance we'll have of being successful with them. So, even if you're 30 and, Alzheimer's disease is a long way off, it's actually potentially some of the biological changes are happening, the drivers for all these diseases. So, let's not wait till we're 70 to do these things. Let's not wait till we're 60. Let's not wait till we're 50. There are things we can do at a much, much earlier age. Think these healthy lifestyle strategies apply to really all ages once we reach adulthood.
Amazing. So you talk a lot about, the carbs, the fat, the proteins, and I know at one point you kind of made a joke in the book. You're like, this isn't a diet. Like, I'm not giving you a prescription diet. And I was so thankful too, because I've been looking a lot at veganism this year and just trying different things. And you said getting your protein doesn't have to come from an animal source. It can come from avocados, nuts, beans, legumes. And so you really show how this can apply to vegans and carnivores. But talk to us more about what that looks like, because for a while, as I was reading and I saw that one graph with just the fat does not store at all, I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, like, is it possible to just eat a diet of more fat? And I know you talk in the book about how that doesn't add more fat to you, which I know is a common misconception. Um, but I know you need the protein too. But is it possible to just eat the proteins and the fats? And does that increase your metabolism?
Yeah, I believe eating a diet. My mom was a dietitian, so I was always taught to eat a balanced diet, eat many things, many small meals through the day. And I don't believe that anymore. I don't eat a balanced diet. I eat a diet very low in the one food group that's non-essential, the carbohydrates, the one that drives insulin. And my diet is mainly fat and protein. But talking about diets, and yeah, I say in the book, don't go on a diet because diets don't work, right? We know diets don't work. So this is not a diet. It's about how we choose to eat for the rest of our lives. So it's not something we do for a week and then go off of it. But speaking of diets have become almost politicized, like, too many other things in our lives, where we have, vegans who eat only plant things versus carnivores who eat only animal things, and they don't talk to each other. Well, I love my vegan friends. I love my carnivore friends. I used to be a vegan for about 10 years. I've been a carnivore. I've drank all the Kool-Aid. But I think all those diets, you can be healthy on anywhere from a vegan to a carnivore diet, and you can also be very unhealthy, depending on what you choose to eat. So it's not whether it's plant-based or whether it's animal-based, it's how much junk food you have mixed in with that. And, sadly, there's a lot more plant-based junk food, trust me, I know from experience, than there is animal-based junk food, but you can still go off the rails on a carnivore diet too. So, yeah, it's interesting that way. The main things I avoid are, is junk food. And what's junk food? Well, for me, it's, like I mentioned, the carbohydrates, the sugars, the starches, the rice, the flour that drives insulin. So I cut those out of my diet. And then oils are good, fats are good, but there's certain kinds of oils that are actually bad. They're they're
Talk
junk
about
food.
this.
Yeah, junk food oils that they're called industrial oils or seed oils, or they're sometimes named vegetable oils to sound nicer, but there's no vegetables in them. They're fascinating. They were originally developed in the beginning of the 20th century as a possible lubricant for German submarines. And that's how Crisco was developed. And it was originally and then sold to Procter and Gamble, who donated millions of dollars to the American Heart Association, that now recommends eating vegetable oil as a heart healthy alternative, which I disagree. I think these industrial oils actually promote inflammation, and it's another thing I avoid. And it's particularly problematic because they're in all kinds of junk foods, salad dressings, even, your hummus from Trader Joe's. I look at the label and it's got canola oil in it. So I, put it
Yep.
back. So you have to be careful because they're low cost, they're inexpensive. It's subsidized by the federal government, the corn and everything. So it's a cheap oil, but it's not a healthy oil. So carbs and seed oils. Then the last thing I avoid on my list of things not to eat is grains, including whole grains. And the reason is grains have a lot of problems, in my opinion. We all know about celiac disease, which is gluten intolerance that some people have. I don't have gluten intolerance, but many experts believe that a large percentage of people are actually allergic or have an immune response to either gluten or other proteins in the grains that triggers low-grade inflammation again, that drives all these chronic diseases. If that weren't enough, most grains or many grains in the United States are bathed in a weed killer called glyphosate that's outlawed in 35 countries for health reasons, but it's still available in the US and grains are soaked in it. And then finally, grains typically tend to have a lot of carbohydrates in them that way. So, I mean, it was an adjustment for me because I love baked goods. I love bagels. I love all that stuff. The only thing, I love my children more, and I want to see their grandkids and their kids and their grandkids. So those are my dietary choices anyway.
No, I like it. I like it. Well, and it can be really confusing too. I mean, you hear seed oil and you think avocados have a big, large, lump in the middle. Avocado oil, coconut oil, olive oil, are all of those okay?
Yeah, it is confusing. Kate Shanahan has a nice list of the hateful eight, she calls them, and she lists the ones that are particularly problematic, and they are usually based on the seed. And if you think about it, the avocado oil is actually from the fruit of the avocado. It's from the green part rather from the seed. So that's the difference there. But it's basically, it has to do with how much omega-6 they have in them, and that's the problem with them.
Interesting. And what about when you're talking about grains? What about almond flour?
Yeah, I mean, almonds are okay. Yeah, and almond flour is a good substitute. I use that myself. Almond butter and that kind of, the nuts are okay for me. And everybody, this is what I choose to do. It works for me. Everybody has to look at their own lives and make their own choices. But there's very strong evidence on the carbs issue, and the seed oils, I think, in the grains for many people can be problematic. The other thing to note is that if you're gonna say, hey, that sounds good, I'm gonna try it. So if you cut out carbs, you can see the effects in 48 hours very quickly. You'll feel the difference in a week. With grains, it actually takes more like 90 days before the immune response goes away. So if you're going to cut out grains, you need to do it for a longer period of time. And seed oils are even longer because they're stored in the body fat. It can be on the matter of a year or two, possibly. So those are
Oh,
things to consider.
that's interesting. So when you say like just kind of waiting for that response, you're waiting for like inflammation can take that long to go down?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people may have, there's a whole list of diseases: irritable bowel disease, migraine headaches, joint pain, all kinds of this sort of menagerie of diseases that are all linked to low-grade inflammation. And people find that for some people, cutting out grains will actually improve their complexion. The acne goes away, or maybe the bowel disease goes away, or, they get better. And maybe dairy too. Some people don't tolerate dairy well, but each person has a different thing. But one way to try it is to cut out some of these things and see how your body responds. A lot of people go on a carnivore diet and a lot of things get better, including their diabetes. So there are different ways, because if you think about it, a carnivore diet doesn't have the carbohydrates and it doesn't have the grains. So you've already cut those out, and then it just depends on, how the seed oils go. But there's another thing you can do if you say, hey, I don't want to change my diet. I don't want to change what I eat. There's actually one other thing you can do. Is just, if you keep your food the same, but change when you eat, most people will get a dramatic improvement in health. And that's just cutting
Yeah,
out.
talk to us about that time of like when you eat. And also, I heard you kind of reference intermittent fasting, but there are new studies that came out, and I know I don't know much about them, that talk about the risk of cardiovascular disease with intermittent fasting.
Yeah, yeah. Intermittent fasting is it's one of the healthiest things we can do. I mean, Jason Fung is a nephrologist who's big on fasting. Actually, he's a friend. He wrote the foreword for my book, but he famously said, talking about religions, there's one thing that Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, all great religions agree on, and it's nothing to do with an article of faith. It's just the fact that fasting is healthy, and I think it is, because just the act of taking food in your mouth and swallowing food triggers normal healthy response, which is inflammation, because it's foreign matter entering our body, and inflammation is the response to foreign matter. So whenever you're eating, you're triggering a little bit of inflammation, which is normal, healthy. The problem is when people eat all the time, that inflammation is triggered all the time. There are also benefits, things that happen when a metabolic switch called mTOR and other switches go to a fasting mode. They turn down inflammation, like we talked about, and they also turn up repair, something called autophagy, where old damaged cells are repaired, and it's like the body rejuvenates a little bit. So there are advantages to fasting, and I started just by cutting out snacks after dinner. I brushed my teeth as soon as I ate dinner, because I'm basically lazy, and I knew if I snacked again, I'd have to brush my teeth again. So that worked. And then next, I skipped breakfast, and then eventually I skipped lunch. And for me, that works for me. I eat one meal a day when my kids come home from school, and I've noticed I feel better. Like, my mind is clearer. I have a lot more energy when I'm fasted, and your metabolism changes into a state of ketosis, which is a energetically favorable state that has a lot of benefits. But fasting is something that people can try. Obviously, if you have medical conditions, check with your doctor. You referenced a study that recently came out that was quoted in mainstream press. And the problem was that particular study wasn't a published study or peer-reviewed study. It was an abstract from a scientific meeting, which had, a title that said that that fasting was associated with increased cardiovascular risk. And the problem was the study, hasn't been vetted, it hasn't been reviewed, and it until it comes out in a peer-reviewed paper, until people can look at it, we have to be very careful, because right now the evidence is very strong that fasting is healthy. And when newspapers and media publishes things like that, a lot of people are going to go, wow, I'm not going to fast anymore. I don't want to get a heart attack. That's
Right.
going to harm a lot of people.
Absolutely.
On the
Well, and
other
I've been on
hand,
those
yeah.
I've been on those sides of the news desk where, I'm doing an internship at ABC, NBC, and getting the press releases coming off, and you're looking for the best headlines,
Yep.
to put
Yeah.
out there, and you're looking for shock and awe to put out there. That is that industry. So I totally know what you mean, and thank you for speaking to that point because I felt the exact same way when I read the article. I was like, "Oh, no," like, "Now this." So I think that what you said just kinda puts all of that to rest, and we can all have peace of mind fasting and being okay with fasting.
Yeah, and we all have to be open-minded. I mean, when I lived with my mom as the dietitian in my family, we ate low-fat diets. We ate margarine instead of butter, thinking all that was healthy. And so we all have to look at the evidence. And now, the evidence is very strong that that's actually unhealthy, and it's much healthier to eat a low-carb diet. But, if a year from now a study comes out that's a credible study that says Coca-Cola is healthy, I'll go back to drinking it again. But the evidence isn't there. So that's
No. Well, and it's interesting because you go on in the book to just show how metabolism and really lower carbohydrates affects everything in our lives. Fatty liver disease, which is something that runs in my family, hypertension, blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, even cancer, Alzheimer's, which I know your mom suffered from, and mental health. I mean, you look at just everything that I'm kind of working with on a spiritual level of people who come in who want to get in touch with their spiritual side because they've just been diagnosed with cancer, people who have so many different mental health stuff underlying, which I obviously send them to a counselor for. And all of this is completely impacted by the metabolism and can be really counteracted just by eating lower carbohydrates.
yeah, it blew me away that all these different diseases that I had been taught were completely separate diseases, and many of my colleagues still believe are completely separate diseases, all have a basic fundamental root in metabolic health. And the evidence for that is that changing patients to a metabolically healthy diet, which includes the things we've been talking about, and maybe going into a state of ketosis, will actually make people lose weight. Their blood pressure will drop, their chance of heart attack and stroke will decrease, their chance of cancer will be less. And these metabolic diets are now being used as adjunctive therapy for cancer, not as a replacement for things, but at least they're showing benefits there. But like you said, also the same lifestyle choices improve patients with Alzheimer's disease, that brain fog goes away. And then, even more exciting is mental health. These,
Yeah.
schizophrenic patients in a mental hospital on psychiatric drugs. Chris Palmer and Georgia Ede have shown that some, not all of the patients, but some of them, when they change to a metabolically healthy diet, they become well. They don't need medicines anymore. They go home back to their families. They return to society and have a job. It's amazing that all these things are linked together. And you can't help but wonder, on the mental health side, I always bring up this question, is that if this junk food, which is a metabolically unhealthy diet, broadly, if this junk food makes people crazy, at least some people crazy, or gives them mental health conditions, what about the rest of us who, are living our lives dealing with, our partners, our kids, our, our employees, our bosses, and the anger, the anxiety, the stress we have? How can these metabolic effects, I wonder how they're affecting us and the way we deal with things? I mean, our world's become so politicized now. Republicans don't talk to Democrats anymore. And, the world is just, inflamed and angry. I can't help but wonder, in the last 30 years,
Ooh.
the junk food is driving all these chronic diseases and mental illness. I wonder what it's doing to everybody else, just as far as the interpersonal relationships, the spirituality, to your
Yeah.
point, how people look at the world, how they look at each other, that kind of thing as well.
Wow, I just got the best mental image as you were saying that because I've been around a lot of parents throughout my lifetime who have taken their kids off of junk food, processed foods, for ADHD and just seen huge mood changes, and brain changes and learning changes at school. And so you're right. What if all of us were the parents of ourselves and took ourselves off of the processed stuff and the carbohydrates and just see what happens? Would we be a more peaceful world?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's a really important question.
Yeah. And kind of to that point, I've been associated with the uh kind of like medically fragile world. My daughter was born as a medically fragile child, and she was pretty much off and on in the hospital for the first 6 months. She was tube fed for the first 3 years. And I watched a lot of my friends who had medically fragile children put their kids on ketogenic diets and just see huge changes within children with syndromes, epilepsy and different things. I think that there's always been this underlying statement that just comes after, but we can't all be on that. And it's like, no, we can.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who switched to a ketogenic diet a few years ago, I'm fine. And to be clear, I'm a junk food addict. I
Right
love
there with
junk
you.
food. There's nothing
Yeah.
I would rather eat. So it was challenging for me, but I found that fine, I don't eat donuts, but get to eat, let's say, avocados. I'll have a bowl of guacamole, eat the whole bowl, or I'll have cream cheese, or I'll have, sour cream, or I'll have meat, or, beef that I hadn't eaten, otherwise. So you substitute things, and I don't feel like I'm deprived. For me, it works. And I think that people can, it's not that restrictive a diet, and many people embrace it. If we can eat junk food, we can eat healthy food. It's not that different.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it is habits and that kind of thing that we're used to.
For sure. I think one of the hardest parts is because I've done different things. I think I've probably done every diet under the sun, but when I cut out dairy completely, I see huge changes in my gut health.
Mhm.
And it's hard. Like, and I don't know if you have a solution for this. I think the hardest part is just making the decision to do it and to stick with it. Because we can hem and haw and say, tomorrow's the day, tomorrow's the day, tomorrow's the day. Every day is we're kind of getting to lunch or not preparing something for ourselves and just eating what's in front of us. But then once you really start to make that switch, you're not hungry all the time. And I found that something turns off within my brain where you just don't feel those cravings all the time.
Yeah, that was this great thing I noticed too. With when I was eating carbs all day long, I was hungry all the time. You eat one potato chip, you want to eat the whole bag. When you're in a ketogenic diet or a more metabolically healthy diet, as you say, most people find their appetite is suppressed. So it's like, oh, I haven't eaten since 6 o'clock last night, and I'm really not that hungry, and I'm fine with it. My mind is clear. I'm sharp. So there are those benefits that happen as well. But one thing that was a surprise to me or one thing I need to keep telling myself is that a lot of the stuff with the lifestyle choices, that sometimes it's not enough just to educate people. In other words, it's not enough just to, I understand, okay, that carbs are bad, sugar's bad. I understand that this is healthy, but even educated people who understand that will still sometimes slip back into these things because there are all sorts of motivators for us, our childhood trauma, where, our addictions that we all have, we all have childhood trauma of one form or the other. And these addictions, shouldn't be underestimated. And so for some people, it's not a matter of just, oh, I'm going to choose to eat healthy. They may benefit from a coaching program.
Yeah.
Even some people use certain types of addiction drugs. Like there's a drug called naltrexone, which is used for very serious addicts to reduce the cravings. There's some junk food addiction programs that use now low dose naltrexone, which is a low dose of that helps people get off junk food and takes care of some of the addictions and the cravings to make the transition to a more metabolically healthy diet.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. Because I think that what Ozempic and Manjaro and those other things are showing is that sometimes it is a brain addiction issue and that there are pathways in the brain that these medications impact. Does that Trexone fall within that Manjaro area or where it's like impacting different pathways within the brain?
Yeah, it's a different pathway. Ozempic and that class of drugs, I think, are really problematic
Okay.
in that require a lifetime of use. They're very expensive. They mess up with stomach emptying, and also with people lose weight, but they lose weight in some cases in a strange pattern. You've heard of Ozempic facies, where people get their eyes are really sunken in and they get a sort of a gaunt look to them. But for all sorts of reasons, I'm very careful about Ozempic, and it's I think we have to be very careful in using it. People have said that a hard-boiled egg is nature's Ozempic. Take 3 of those a day, and your appetite's gonna decrease. You're probably you're gonna eat less, and it's a very healthy way to consume your calories.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I gotta say, I've been an avid reader since I was probably 13, 14 years old. And every once in a while, a book comes out that says stuff that you might have heard before, but says it in a different way that just completely wakes you up and just catapults you in a different shift. And I love where you say in the book, but the equation calories eaten equals calories burned is oversimplified because any person who has struggled with extra pounds knows calories eaten can also go for fat storage instead of being directly burned. So the equation should really look like this: calories eaten equals calories burned plus calories stored. And this entire process that you talk about within the book of calories being stored has really shifted how I see my body processing the foods that I'm putting into my mouth and has really helped me understand the why behind it all. I think a lot of times when people understand a why, they're like, "Oh, well, that makes sense," and I kept coming to that. Oh, well, that makes sense, like time and time again. And sometimes that is what firms something up with that mental shift that gives you the strength that you need to actually make a change.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I'm glad that's working for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much. So if people want to reach you or find the book, where can they find you and the book? And we'll put that in the show notes below.
Sure. The books on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the different places. If you want to look at a free chapter, you can download a free chapter on my website, see if you like the writing style or see if it resonates with you. My website is Robert Lufkin, Luf as in Frank, KINMD.com. and I'm active on social media as well. So hopefully we'll see you out there.
Yay. Well, Dr. Lufkin, thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thanks so much, Julie, for having me, and thanks for the great work you do.
Thank you so much. You too, friend. Friends, I need your help reaching as many people as possible. If you'd like to support this podcast and help us spread more hope to the world, please book a session with me, join my angel membership, or take my angel Reiki school. What's the difference? If you'd like to know what messages your angels and loved ones have for you, you'll want to book a session with me. The angel membership is all about your own personal spiritual healing. The membership takes you on a spiritual journey that teaches you how to create your own heaven on earth. And the Angel Reiki School is for those who want to get certified in mediumship, angel messages, and energy healing all at once. These are 3 ways you can help us share a message of hope and love with more people than ever before. Register for one or all 3 at theangelmedium.com. That's theangelmedium.com. Now, let's pray together. As we do, I want you to pray in a way where you feel as though everything you want for yourself and the world has already come true, and you're giving thanks. Why? Because this is the best way to manifest. So let's begin. God, universe, source, thank you. We're so grateful that you've blessed this world with calm and peace for all. This calm and peace has spread like ripples, soothing the hearts of every soul. Thank you for opening our hearts to abundance, allowing each of us to live our most authentic life, and helping us to create our own heaven on earth. We thank you for the love and deep heart-to-heart connection that surrounds us every day in our relationships. We thank you for the abundance of health and aliveness we feel radiating from every cell in our and our families' bodies. Thank you for the gift of walking this life with us and guiding us every step of the way through your messages. We hear you through our own intuition, and we feel you walking right by our sides, and we overflow with gratitude. Thank you for financial abundance, an abundance of opportunities and miracles, blessings, and prosperity in every way. We know that you want us to succeed so that we can show others how you want them to succeed too. Thank you for the boundless love, kindness, empathy, and compassion that binds us all together. Thank you for the laughter, fun, moments of pure delight that fill us every day, especially today. God, universe, source, thank you for blessing us beyond measure and allowing us to use our souls, gifts, talents, skills, and abilities to serve the world. We love you. I love you. And in this we pray. Amen. Friends, we're working on some pretty major things over here. And if you wouldn't mind saying a little prayer that these things come to fruition if they're God's will, we'd so appreciate it. And please add a little prayer in for any specific thing you need right now, too. Have a beautiful, blessed day. And don't forget to submit your contact info at theangelmedium.com if you'd like me to channel the name of one of your angels for you. Sending you peace, bliss, and many blessings.